Hello students, welcome to Mallareddy Memorial School Digital Class. Class 10 English, Chapter 1, Attitude is Altitude, Vocabulary Part. The last session we have been discussing about vocabulary, the qualities that can be allotted to Nick Vujicic. We had a discussion on these qualities. Now let us see. What you're supposed to do is pick out from the text the examples that support these attributes. You have already selected some qualities that can be given to Nick Vujicic, the qualities of Nick Vujicic among these many words. Now your task is to pick out the text, the examples that support these attributes. The first one is done for you. Positive. In spite of his disability, he has become great. So this is the example that shows Nick Vujicic is positive. Let us see the next one. Cowardly was not suitable. Arrogant was not suitable. Negative was not suitable. Courageous is the next word. So what you can do is, in this first column you can write courageous, and which sentence shows that he was courageous? Yes, the sentence, if I fail, I try again and again. This sentence shows that Nick was courageous. So dear students, please go through all the qualities of Nick Vujicic, write in the first box, and in the second box you are supposed to write which sentence shows that Nick was courageous. Okay, let us move on to the next topic. Take the word or expression which is nearest in meaning to the word underlined in each of the sentences given below. This is a particular question that is often appearing in examination. You can find a word is underlined in a sentence. Let's analyze the first one. Water sports are in Nick's only thing. He also plays golf with a club tucked under his chin. Here you find a lot of words: kept, pulled, covered, tied. Some of the options may look similar, but you are supposed to select the best word. Tucked. What do you mean by tucked? What is suitable in this context is what that you need to find out. Tucked means we can write kept. Okay, the second one. His distraught mother couldn't bring herself to hold him until he was 4 months old. The word distraught, you have learned that upset or worried. So the exact meaning will not be provided here. Synonym of the word may be provided here. You are requested to look carefully and find the word that is suitable to the meaning of the word distraught. Angry, careless, shy, anxious. So among these four options, the word anxious is suitable. In this manner, please go through all these rest of the word sentences, find the underlined word, and please complete this exercise part. Let us come to the third vocabulary exercise. Read the following description about a person and fill in the blanks with the words that match with this description. So we learned a lot of adjectives in this lesson. There are a few adjectives given here. You are supposed to fill in the blanks with the correct adjective. The striking thing is, in the question, the near meaning of the adjective is given. The first one, Ashok is a very unpleasant and rude fellow. I don't talk to him. He is dash. So what do you call a person who is very unpleasant and rude is what you need to find out in this. Let me explain the meanings of all these adjectives to you. Please look at the word boorish. The word boorish means rough and bad-mannered. Who is very rough, who is ill-mannered. The word extrovert, an outgoing, socially confident person. A person who is mingling with the society, who does not hide his feelings. Meticulous. Meticulous means showing great attention when someone or something is describing something. A meticulous boy listens carefully. Suave, S-U-A-V-E. Suave means charming or very confident. The word placid means not easily upset or excited, having a strong willpower, does not get easily upset. Obnoxious, extremely unpleasant. Very, very unpleasant, very, very unhappy. Compassionate means feeling sympathy for others, having compassion. Timid, showing lack of courage. Next word is malicious, desiring to hurt others, desiring to harm others. A person who has desire to hurt others is known as malicious. You can see a word extrovert here. The opposite of extrovert is introvert, which means a person who does not exhibit his feelings to others. Now let us get back to the exercise. Ashok is a very unpleasant and rude fellow. I don't want to talk to him. He is, as I explained the meaning, which option among which adjective is suitable here? Yes, the word boorish is suitable here. Boorish means, we have already learned, a bad-mannered person. Boorish. In this manner, please go through the other exercise and complete, fill in the blanks. Okay? Now we are going to learn about the grammar part of this lesson. Defining and non-defining relative clause. This is a very important part of the grammar which you may come across even in future. Let's read the following sentences. The woman who taught him surfing had been bitten by a shark. Please look at the underlined phrase. Who taught him surfing? Nick, who was teased and bullied, had an electric wheelchair for mobility. Before entering defining and non-defining relative clause, let us learn something about what is a clause, what is a relative clause, how can a relative clause be formed. Okay? Clause. Clause is part of a sentence which contains a subject and verb. So clauses can be classified as main clause and subordinate clause. Let me write an example for you. If you study well, you will pass. If you study well, you will pass. Please look at the sentence given here. If you study well, you will pass is the sentence. In this sentence, we have got two clauses. Here we have a subject you and the verb is study. You will pass. You is the subject, will pass is the verb. So what we have learned, clause is part of a sentence or a sentence itself which has a subject and verb. Okay? So in this sentence we have got two clauses. This is a clause and this is a clause. Let us look at both clauses. The speciality of this clause, you will pass. The speciality is it gives us meaning without the help of the previous clause. It gives us complete information without the help of this clause. So this is known as main clause or independent clause. As this clause does not depend on the other clause to give meaning, because even if you strike this clause can give you meaning itself. That's why it is known as main clause or independent clause. Whereas you look at this clause, if you study well. When you hear the word if you study well, merely when you hear the clause if you study well, it's very clear that you cannot understand, you don't get the complete information. This clause depends on this clause for the meaning, completion of the meaning. So as this clause is depending on the other clause, this clause is known as subordinate clause or dependent clause. Why it is dependent clause? This clause depends on the main clause for its meaning. So we have got two types of clauses here, main clause and subordinate clause, or dependent clause and independent clause. Let me come again. Dependent clause depends on the main clause for its meaning. So how do you identify whether a clause is dependent or independent? Read both clauses. Which clause gives you complete information, that is main clause or independent clause? It stands independently. Whereas the clause which does not give complete meaning, complete information, and it depends on the main clause is known as dependent clause. Okay? Now let us learn what is a relative clause. Please look at the slide. Before going to learn what is relative clause, we need to know what are relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are used to connect sentences. These pronouns connect sentences. The word who, which, whose, and that, where, these are the relative pronouns. Who, it is used to refer to people. Let me make an example. The person who is standing at the gate is my uncle. The person who is standing at the gate is my uncle. There are two sentences. A person is standing at the gate, he is my uncle. These two sentences are joined using a relative pronoun who. The person who is standing at the gate is my uncle, which refers to animals, objects, or ideas. Where is the camera which I gave you yesterday? An object. Where is the dog which you purchased from Italy? Okay? Whose? Whose refers to possession. Whose? Okay? The same manner, the next word is that. That refers to people, animal, or objects like which. In which there is a speciality which does not refer to people, but that refers to people, animals, objects. Where is the camera that I have given you yesterday? Where refers to place. This is the place where I was born. This is the place where I was born. When refers to time. That is a time when I used to go for jogging. Okay, so these are relative pronouns. Now let us see what is relative clause. Relative clause. Relative clauses provide an extra information about the nouns they modify. They have the function of adjective. The information can either be define something or provide unnecessary but interesting and extra information. So relative clause is usually formed using a relative pronoun. The topic that we are going to learn now is defining and non-defining relative clause. Relative clauses gives extra information or define something. Relative clauses are formed using a relative pronoun as we have learned now. Look at these two sentences. The first sentence. The woman who taught him surfing had been bitten by a shark. What is the relative pronoun here? Yes, you can observe the relative pronoun is who. Look at the second sentence. Nick, who was teased and bullied, had an electric wheelchair for mobility. The relative pronoun is who. So the underlined part is relative clause. So how do you identify relative clause? Yes. Relative clause is introduced by a relative pronoun. Here the relative pronoun is who. The word who introduces the relative clause. If you observe these both sentences, what do you observe? What do you observe? Yes, both the sentence has a different function. You see, the woman who taught him surfing had been bitten by a shark. Here, in the first sentence, the relative clause who taught him surfing introduces the woman or defines the woman. So it is known as a defining relative clause. It is known as a defining relative clause. Why it is known as defining relative clause? Because this clause defines the woman. Whereas in the second sentence, just observe carefully, Nick, who was teased and bullied, had an electric wheelchair for mobility. The relative clause is who was teased and bullied. Here the speciality of the relative clause is it is introduced using a comma at the beginning and at the end. You see there is a comma before the relative clause and after the relative clause. So what does it show? This relative clause adds some extra information to the subject. Adds some extra information to the subject. You see, even if this clause is not there, the sentence is complete. Whereas in the first sentence, this clause is compulsory here because it defines the woman. Which woman? Which woman taught him surfing? It's important here. Whereas here, who was teased and bullied is not compulsory. Nick had an electric wheelchair for mobility. We can simply say Nick had an electric wheelchair for mobility. That's it. Okay? So this is known as non-defining relative clause. Non-defining relative clause. It does not define, but it adds extra information. Another example, Rabindranath Tagore or Gandhiji, who is known as the father of nation, visited Telangana. If I say a sentence like that, who is known as the father of nation just adds extra information. So that is known as non-defining relative clause. And non-defining clause, relative clause will be always followed and preceded by a comma or a hyphen, as you see in the next sentence. The brave 26-year-old who is mainly a torso plays football and golf and swims and stuff. Who is mainly a torso? This is the non-defining relative clause in this sentence. I hope that you have understood about defining and non-defining relative clause. What you need to do next is read the text again and identify some more defining and non-defining clauses. This is an exercise for you to complete. Okay? Let us see the next. Complete the sentence with the defining and non-defining clause. Here you have freedom to write anything. This is the place. I am talking about it. This is the peaceful place. How will you complete this sentence? Here you can write a defining relative clause like this is the peaceful place where I was born. This is the peaceful place that where I was born. The same way, the Mahaprasthanam is a popular book. You should use a relative pronoun here and complete it. Suresh dash has left the school just now. Is this the street dash? You can form anything here. Is this the street where diamonds are sold? You can add. Is this the street where cars are sold? The express dash has just arrived. I request you to complete this exercise using a defining and non-defining relative clause. So dear students, today we have completed the vocabulary part and also we had learned about the textual grammar. That's the end of this session. Thank you all.